Hey everyone, welcome to the Week 8 prediction video for the Danger Family Fantasy Football League. I'm your host, Paul Jensen, and thank you for joining me. Let's go ahead and get started on everything that what happened transaction-wise this week. It's just some ones to note. I added the Jets defense. They're playing the Giants. I figured maybe that'd be a better matchup than San Francisco because we've been playing pretty bad lately. And dropping Jamison Williams, so he's free if anyone wants to take a flyer on him. I also added Dalton Kincaid at tight end, and since Dawson Knox is on IR, I feel like maybe that could be a good addition for me. We'll see how that goes. And then I also changed kickers to Kaimi Fairbairn. Jake Moody's had some couple bad weeks, and then I also added Kareem Hunt, since Jerome Ford is going to be out for a few weeks. So yeah, I got a lot of additions for myself. Also, Nels, he added Amari DeMarcado from the Cardinals, trying to see if he continues to get some good looks, being the number one running back for now. And then also adding Taysom Hill. That was kind of more of an interesting ad for Nels. Who knows how that'll go. Um, and then also Tom up here added the Browns defense. So Tom's picking up a new defense. Now, I don't know if he'll start the Browns defense, but because they are kind of having a little tough matchup on the road against Seattle, but who knows? Um, and then John Lopp added the Chiefs defense. He also added Brandon McManus and Michael Mayer. A little interesting with that one. I mean, obviously John's going through that tight end um, carousel right now for trying to figure out who his starting tight end is going to be, but might as well try with a new guy, some that not many people know about. So could be good. We'll see. And then finally, Joan, my mom added Seattle and dropped the Raiders defense. So all for the matchups, I'm assuming. There wasn't really any competition on the waiver wire this week, so not going to show you a waiver report because it just would just be showing everyone whoever all the people picked up. So yep. Now let's just go right into the matchups for the week. First matchup is battle of last place teams, Carroll versus myself. Who is the true loser? I say that in a lighthearted way, obviously. But yeah, two struggling teams, 2-5 Carroll versus 1-6 me. Um, yeah, this one it's projected to be close. Um, Quarterback, obviously, I think Jalen Hurts is probably gonna have a much better day than Tua is. Tua struggled against the Patriots last time he played them. Jalen Hurts has been playing pretty well, and I think he'll continue to do well against Washington, who's been pretty spotty defense. So, um, yeah, I'm gonna go with Jalen Hurts in that one. For the running backs, um, I do like Isaiah Pacheco a lot against Denver. Rashad White, I'm not sure how good he'll do, but for my end, I have Derrick Henry going up against the Falcons defense, who's actually been surprisingly pretty good overall. They haven't really allowed many rushing, like they're not allowing more than 100 yards per rush per game to running backs that they play. So that's one thing. And then I got Kareem Hunt, who's going to be the number one guy for Cleveland if he's healthy. That is, he's questionable. So like, there's a possibility I could play Najee Harris or Miles Sanders, even Deontay Foreman again. Um, but yeah, as of right now, I'm going to go with Carroll's running backs just because I like Pacheco a lot and Rashad White, even though he's not a guy that really excites you. He did go off last week against. He had 16 points against the Falcons defense, and um, maybe then Ramondre Stevenson did well against the Bills defense last week, so maybe that carries over and running backs do a little bit better against Buffalo than we all think. Um, Looking at the receivers, though, I am going to go with my receivers, Keenan Allen and Puka, over Zay Flowers and Nico Collins. Now, yeah, Keenan Allen's going against the Bears defense. They tend to struggle against top receivers. And then Puka Nakua's he's only had really one bad week, and that was 2 weeks ago. He's been very reliable for me. Nico Collins has been very up and down roller coaster. You just never know what you're going to get with him. So I mean, he could go off, especially against the young Carolina defense, but um, it is on the road, so it might be a little bit tougher. And then Zay Flowers, he's probably been the Ravens' most consistent receiver, top number one receiver going against another bad defense as well. So it could be close, but I still will pick my receiving core over hers. At tight end, Carroll's got the edge at tight end. Sam Laporte has been doing great. He's been struggling a little bit lately, but overall, though, much better than I mean, Kincaid had a good week last week. And I hope he goes off and has a great game tonight on Thursday Night Football. But the odds right now, I would say Laporta is just looking better going up against a weaker defense in Vegas. Tampa Bay's got some good linebackers that they could cover Kincaid with. For flex, I'm also going to go Carroll slightly. Jamar Chase coming off the bye. He's fresh and he's going up against a Niners defense that's actually struggled the last couple of weeks so, against number one receivers in Amari Cooper and Jordan Addison. So uh, and Devontae Adams has just been struggling. I mean, yeah, he finally broke the double-digit barrier last week, but even then, wasn't by that much. And the Raiders just aren't getting him the ball, and it's frustrating. He's not looking like the old Devontae Adams that he used to be. I mean, he probably still is. He just has they're not targeting him enough. So uh, even though the 49ers are a much tougher defense than the Lions, I do think Jamar Chase will have a much better game. And then when it comes to defense, I will give myself a slight edge at defense just because the Giants' offense has not looked that good this year. I mean, they won last Sunday against Washington, but they only scored 14 points, and I think the Jets coming off a bye, they'll have a nice fresh defense ready to dominate that game. Ravens, that they have a good defense too. Don't get me wrong, and obviously they held the Lions to just 6 points, but they will be traveling to Arizona, and Arizona, even though they're not good, they seem to do a lot better at home than they do on the road. And Arizona has, in their three home games this year, they have been putting up a lot of points. So I think that trend kind of stays the same. And Baltimore probably might get like a pick or two, maybe even a defensive touchdown, which might as well be might be the difference. But overall, though, I will pick the Jets just slightly. But with that being said, I think just the fact that Carroll has the better running backs, quarterback, and tied into flex, that right there does it. Carroll's probably going to win this one pretty easily over me. Um, and then just some other options. I'm a little shocked that she has Joe Mixon on her bench instead of starting him. I mean, if it were me, I probably would have started Joe Mixon over Rashad White just because, um, Joe Mixon's been probably the more consistent back of the two. And I get it, he has a little bit of a tougher matchup, but um, yeah, I mean, just Rashad White's very hot and cold. I mean, he had a hot week. He had a good week last week. I don't know if he's been consistent enough to trust. And then on my end, I have Najee Harris or Miles Sanders or even Deontay Foreman that could go with his backup plans for Kareem Hunt in case he gets hurt, in case he's out for Sunday's game. So we'll see how that goes. Probably not going to start Kyle Pitts. Obviously, Thursday Night Football's tonight, so I'm going to go with Kincaid. See how that goes. I thought about maybe starting McLaurin over Devontae just because McLaurin uh, he's been playing decently lately, and Adams has just been very disappointing. But I don't know. I feel like if I don't play Adams, he'll go off and have an amazing game. So yeah, I'm just in a tough position with my team overall, though. Moving forward to the next game, we have two 4-3 teams, spouses going up against each other. Nels versus Joan, mom versus dad. Yeah, pretty crazy. And two teams that are fighting for playoff spots right now. They're like Joan right now is in the playoffs, being second place in the West, and Dad Nels being third in the East. He's fighting to get in the playoffs as well. So Nels needs to win, and he needs Ben and Adrian to start slow down a bit. Um, but looking at the matchup though, for quarterback, these are two really good quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Now I know Josh Allen has had the better season thus far. I'm actually going to go with Lamar Jackson in this one just because uh, Josh Allen, and I know he's at home, and I get that, and he's going up against a Tampa Bay team who's been kind of iffy. The only reason I say this is because he's playing on Thursday night, and for whatever reason this year, Thursday night has been much, what's the word? It's been more defensive heavy game so far. It seems like Thursday night games, when it's on a short week, it kind of favors the defense. Um, and Tampa Bay has a decent defense. They're not bad. And the Patriots were able to hold Josh Allen at least in the first half. And even the Giants defense in Buffalo played well against Josh Allen. So I don't know. I think maybe with the Bills struggles and the fact that it's a short week, I like the fact that Lamar had just had an amazing game and he'll continue to do well against a pretty uh, young and inexperienced Cardinals defense. So I think he'll rush a lot, especially against Arizona. So I like Lamar's chances just a little bit better than Josh Allen's. Um, at running back, I'm gonna go. Actually gonna go with Joan, just slightly over Nelson's. Um, Austin Eckler's. I feel like, and this was all of our running backs last week didn't do well, but I think Eckler and Madison in particular will have really good games. Bounce back games. Both have great matchups. Chicago and Green Bay are two really poor run defenses. So I expect Eckler and Madison to both have great games against those two. Now, Tony Pollard will probably have a good game as well. You know, he'll get a lot of catches out of the backfield. So I expect Pollard to have a great game. The one downside to Nelson's team right now is Javonte Williams, and like right now without James Conner, he doesn't really have a second running back, and it's tough. Brian Robinson's been struggling a bit, and he's going up against number one rush defense this week, so I don't expect Nelson to play Brian Robinson to get going up against Philly. He might play DeMarcado and see how that goes against Baltimore, but then again, like he's usually just a backup, and Baltimore's a good defense. So uh, guess he's kind of forced to play Javonte. But with that being said, I think I like Mom's running backs just a little bit better. Um, Wide receiver, I'm gonna go with Nels just slightly over Mom's. I like Christian Kirk. He's been playing really well and He's been a lot more consistent than most other receivers she has. George Pickens has a higher ceiling, so he can go off for a lot more, and he's been playing pretty well of late. But Chris Olave is going up against one of the weakest secondaries in all football in Indianapolis, and Adam Thielen has just been a fantasy star. He's been a stud, and going up against another young defense in Houston. So I just think I like Thielen and Olave's potential more than Christian Kirk and Pickens. Now, not to say that they can't do it because I think they could. I think there is a obviously a scenario where mom's receivers do better than dad's, but for now I'm gonna stick with dad's. At tight end, that one's gonna be Nels. I mean Travis Kelce, you know, he's just the best tight end in fantasy football. There's no question about it. Even last time he played Denver, he had an amazing game. Um, Darren Waller, he's pretty good, but he's been playing pretty well lately, but he's also not as consistent or nearly as productive as Travis Kelce, and he's going up against a tougher defense in the Jets. So yeah, give me Travis Kelce all day. At flex, I will say that Joan probably has the edge here on flex. Now, Michael Pittman has been playing well. He is going to be matched up against oh my God, what's the guy's name? Marshawn Lattimore of the Saints. And the Saints actually have a pretty decent secondary. So I think they'll try to. I think the Saints will maybe have a decent game against Indianapolis defensively and limit Michael Pittman, where I think Wilson will really go off because the Giants really don't have anyone in their secondary that really scares me or scares their opponents. So yeah, Garrett Wilson, give me him all day against Michael Pittman. And then defense, it's this one I don't understand because I know Cleveland's going through some injuries, like Deshaun Watson's not playing, and now Jerome Ford's out and Hunt's questionable. But even then, like the Browns' offense has been playing pretty well the last couple of weeks, and their defense actually helps their offense. So, I'm in Seattle. I mean, yeah, they've been playing okay defensively, but they've also been playing some struggling teams in Cincinnati and Arizona barely holding on to those victories too. Seattle may have a good defense, but I actually will take the Dolphins defense over the Seattle's defense this week in particular, just because Dolphins are playing New England. I know New England went off against Buffalo last week. I put that up as more of Buffalo struggling, and it was at home against Buffalo too. They'll be on the road in Miami, and the Patriots usually struggle in Miami. Um, yeah, and the Dolphins defense, yeah, I mean the Patriots just don't scare me. Even though they won, I get that. I'm gonna go with that on the defensive side. So with all that being said, I think Nels pulls out the win here, but I would not be surprised if Joan won. I would not, seriously, because if Christian Kirk and George Pickens both have great games, and if Darren Waller, if some like if Travis Kelce just randomly has an off game, Darren Waller goes off, then yeah, mom could definitely win this one. But for now, I'm gonna go with the safe pick and pick Nels to win this game. Other options though, not really much for Dad. I think he's playing it pretty much right. The only thing, maybe give I can't speak. Maybe give DeMarcado a chance and start him over Javonte Williams. But I mean, you really can't go wrong either way. They're both projected pretty much the same. It's just I think DeMarcado might be in a little bit of a better position than Javonte, but that's just me. And then for Mom, the only thing I could say is if Raheem Mostert's active, I think you should play him because he and that actually might even help. That might make me skew my prediction more towards Joan if Raheem Mostert was in there playing. But I get it's tough because Eckler and Madison both have good matchups, and when you have three pretty good receivers in Kirk, Pickens, and Wilson, it's like, well, Raheem Mostert should be an obvious choice. So like it's tough. I mean, if you had to choose one of those five, I would probably replace him with Madison. But yeah, I mean, if Raheem Mostert's playing, you should play him because he went off against New England in week two, and I know he had a down week last week, but I think he will definitely bounce back and have a great game against New England. Um, but yeah, other than that, I think everything else looks pretty solid for Mom. Um, yeah. Moving forward to game number three, Dallas Donuts versus Beach Desert. Adrian versus Tom. This is a very intriguing matchup. So we got 5-2 in the East, second in the East for Adrian against number one team in our entire league and Tom. Adrian, if you can pull off the win here, then I will stop mocking you. I will stop. I will respect you a lot more. Yeah, this has been, you know, two two top performing teams. It'd be interesting. Can Adrian give Tom his second loss of the season and tie him for the best record in the league, or will Tom continue his domination of our league and show us that he can beat Adrian? So we'll see how it goes. At quarterback, I'm gonna go with Tom. Mahomes just owns the Broncos. He hasn't lost to them yet in his entire career. He just tends to do well. Sam Howell doesn't really scare me that much as a quarterback. He's been struggling lately too, going up against a good Phillies defense. So who held Tua to just 10 fantasy points last week. So um, yeah, I'm gonna go with Mahomes. Running backs. This one might shock you, but I'm actually gonna go with Adrian, just a little bit slightly over Tom's running backs. Now, the reason I say that, Detroit's have been very good against the run. Cleveland's been very good against the run. You got two very good front sevens in Detroit and Cleveland. I mean, Detroit's defense overall has been pretty good, but I mean, other than last week, obviously. But um, they're going to be at home and they're going to want a bounce back performance after that tough loss in Baltimore. And I think they just dominate the Raiders. I think that they hold Josh Jacobs pretty well. I think the Browns are able to limit Kenneth Walker. I don't think they shut him down, but I think they limit Kenneth Walker. Um, whereas Ramondre Stevenson's been playing better of late, and he actually had one of his best games of the season, week two against Miami. So, and I think that's the one aspect of the Patriots running back or the Patriots offense, I should say, that um, they've been able to rely on a little bit is the run game. So um, I like Ramondre Stevenson in this matchup. And Gus Edwards went off last week against Detroit, playing another poor run defense in Arizona. I think that helps, I really do. And even if he doesn't play him, because right now it's a little interesting because right now he has CD Lamb on his bench and DeAndre Hopkins on his bench. I think that changes. I think he'll probably put either CD or most likely CD in the second receiver slot, and then maybe bump Drake London to flex, and then move DeAndre Swift up to running back. So even if it is Ramondre and DeAndre, I like DeAndre's matchup with Washington and Ramondre's matchup with Miami more than Tom's running back. So I'm going to give Adrian the slight edge at running back. At wide receiver, if Adrian plays CD Lamb, actually we'll still go with Tom. I know it sounded like I was going to go Adrian. Um, Tyreek Hill. I mean, I know the Patriots defense tends to hold number one receivers pretty well, but just can't really count on that too much. Tyreek's still the number one receiver in all fantasy football. I think even if it's a down week, it's usually like 15 plus points anyway. So I think Tyreek Hill is a good game, and Brandon Ayuk's the number one receiver in San Francisco now that Debo's out for a little bit. Um, I know he had a pretty down game last week, but Cincinnati's defense has struggled lately, and yeah, I like the two number ones here. Adrian's going to have Stephon Diggs, who I think will do pretty well against Tampa Bay. CeeDee Lamb coming off a bye will do pretty well against the Rams. It's going to be close. I'm not saying Tom's receivers are much better than Adrian's. I mean, you can make an argument that Adrian's receivers are just based on their production and consistency, but I just like the fact that when you have Tyreek Hill, like when Thomas Tyreek, yeah, he's easily going to be the best receiver. And then Brandon Ayuk, I just like his matchup against Cincinnati a little bit more. It's like Stephon Diggs playing Tampa. Now Tampa's defense, like I said, they're okay. I think that they find a way to limit the Bills' offense, and it's mainly going to be the running game for the Bills that does well today. Um, but yeah, and then CeeDee Lamb, he'll do his thing. I think he'll do fine against the Rams, but he probably gave you like a good 15, 16 points. Tight end, I am gonna go with Tom just slightly. Green Bay's defense is just, I mean, they're okay. I mean, the only thing about them is that they're decent at rushing the passer, which means Kirk Cousins, when he passes, is gonna want to get the ball out quick. And when that happens, TJ Hawkinson's gonna be there. The Packers linebacking core, their inside linebackers are very weak right now. They've had two of them are injured. I think Devondre Campbell's hurt, and even Quay Walker's dealing with an injury right now. So they're down to like two of their backup linebackers right now. I think that bodes really well for TJ Hawkinson. Now, Mark Andrews is good too. Don't get me wrong, I like him. I think this is another close one. It could go either way. Um, but yeah, I like Hawkinson's matchup just a little bit more. I think Baltimore's going to run the ball a lot, especially with whether it's with Edwards or with Lamar himself. And if they do throw it, they got really young defensive backs, so he's going to target Zay Flowers and Odell and maybe even Rashad Bateman a little bit more than Mark Andrews. So and I know Mark had a really good game last week against Detroit, but I don't know. I could be wrong, honestly. Like they're both really good tight ends. Like there's no denying it. Andrews is definitely a top three tight end in fantasy. It really could go either way. So I'm not saying definitively that it's definitely going to be Tom. I'm just picking this is what I just think. And I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, then I wouldn't be shocked. Um, and then at flex, as it stands right now, I got to go with Adrian's flex, but I think it's going to change. I think Drake London, if I'm going to assume that Drake London is his option at flex just because they're going to have CeeDee Lamb in at receiver two, and then Drake London down here to flex DeAndre Swift up there to running back two. Um, but it's an interesting choice because Gus Edwards, I like his matchup too against Arizona. So Adrian's got kind of a little bit of a conundrum there in terms of what he's going to do. But if it is London at flex, I still like that over Devontae Smith. The Titans' run defense has been good, but their pass defense has not been good. So I like Drake London's, and plus they just lost Kevin Byard. He's with Philly now. They traded away Kevin Byard, their best defensive back in a weak secondary. So even better, it bodes well for Drake London in this matchup against Tennessee. They're gonna be throwing the ball pretty much a good amount just as long as Ritter can get it to him. Devontae Smith, he's been struggling lately, and I really just he hasn't really shown that he can be, he can perform well lately. Uh, if I were Tom, I would probably put in either Watson or Thomas instead of Devontae Smith at flex. But for now, I'm going to go with Adrian at flex. And then at defense, I'm also going to go with Adrian just because the Eagles have the number one defense against the runs. They're going to stop. They're going to really hold Washington's run game, and they're going to try to force Sam Howell to beat them. And I mean, he might be decent, might be okay, but overall, I like the Eagles defense. I mean, they were able to hold Miami, the high-powered Miami offense, pretty well last week, and so I think, and plus, um, Tom's got the Bills defense, and they're playing Tampa now. Tampa has been struggling a bit off on offense lately, so they could do well. I just think Bills they've been struggling lately, and it's possible that maybe Tom does a late little switch here before Thursday Night Football and plays the Browns defense, who've been playing a little bit better now. But um, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Eagles. I like the Eagles matchup over most other defenses this week. So give me Adrian at defense. And with that all being said, so I had Tom at QB, Tom at receiver, Tom at tight end, but I had Adrian at running back and at flex and at defense. So it's going to be close. Don't get me wrong. But I'm only doing this because he's the best in the league. I'm gonna give this a close win to Uncle Tom. I think Tom barely edges it out. I think he'll benefit from big games from Mahomes, a big game from Brandon Ayuk. I think he'll go off against Cincinnati, TJ Hawkinson as well, and um, I just think that it's very possible that Sam Howell struggling will be the difference. If Adrian had a decent quarterback, like a pretty good quarterback, or even maybe like a different I don't know. I feel like his running backs would be fine. But if he had like one dominant running back, right, or either one dominant running back or one decent quarterback, then it would be flipped. I think it'd be Adrian getting the win here. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Tom just slightly. It's gonna be close, and it could go Adrian's way. Don't get me wrong, but I'm predicting Tom. But other options, like I said, I'm assuming Lamb's gonna start. I wouldn't go DeAndre Hopkins this week just because Ryan Tannehill's not gonna be throwing them the ball. It's gonna be Malik Willis, and he has not looked that good at all. Yeah, so other than that, I think as long as you're playing CeeDee Lamb and taking either Edwards or London out in place of him, then yeah, I think you're pretty much playing it the best you possibly can, Adrian. For Tom, yeah, like I said, maybe go with Michael Thomas or Christian Watson over Devontae Smith at flex, just because Thomas, even though he's hasn't really had like a breakout game, he's consistently getting you in that 10 to 13 range, whereas Devontae Smith has been giving you single digits like 5 of the past 6 weeks. So he's been consistently poor, whereas Michael Thomas has been consistently average and consistently like, he's very reliable at just getting you that floor, that good floor. And then Christian Watson too. He had a bad week last week, but you know, Jordan. I mean, I think he'll have a bounce back game against Minnesota. Minnesota's defense is all right. They're not great, but they were able to. I mean, they held San Francisco last week, so who knows? Maybe I could be wrong on that. Going on to the fourth matchup, another spouse matchup, Carrie versus John, and these are both 3-4. Like so, it was mom versus dad at 4-3. We have Carrie versus John, both at 3-4. The winner trying to stay alive for the playoff hunt. And I'm not saying if you lose it, you're going to be out. Obviously, you won't be, but it'd be a lot more helpful if you win. Better to be 4-4, 8 weeks into the season than 3-5. And this is a big week for both of these guys, for or both of these people, for Kerry and John. So, um, looking at quarterbacks, I think it's no question Herbert's probably the better choice here. He's struggled the last few weeks, but I think he'll have a bounce back game against Chicago. Chicago is coming off a good win, but they're playing at home against the struggling Raiders team, and when they're on the road, going up against that offense that the Chargers have, um, yeah, I think I like Justin Herbert a lot. Trevor Lawrence is good, but he is dealing with a little bit of a knee injury. Um, Pittsburgh's defense has been like they had held well against Baltimore, and the Rams. So I think Trevor Lawrence will be fine. He hasn't had a 20 plus point game yet this season though, so I think they might be a little too reliant on the run game for Trevor Lawrence to really go off. Um, at running back, I am a little confused by Carey's decision here. I wouldn't, if I were her, I would be playing Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs. Um, I mean, James Cook, maybe that's a very interesting one because I would definitely play Breece Hall for sure. He's the number one run. He's kind of established himself as the number one guy for running backs in New York. And Jahmyr Gibbs, especially since David Montgomery's not going to be playing, definitely I like him too, especially at home against the Raiders defense that really struggles against the run. So if I were Carey, I might think about changing both of her running backs. And maybe James Cook could go in at flex, and then you can move DJ Moore to one of the two receiver slots, preferably over Hollywood Brown because St. Brown is pretty good. Um, we'll get more into that later. But with that being said, I'm gonna go with with all that being said, I'm gonna go with John's running backs, Saquon and Kamara. They've both been very good. Kamara has been one of the unsung here, like one of the most like not talked about running backs in fantasy. He's been really good since he came off his suspension, and Saquon Barkley's been very consistent as well. He's the only bright spot in that Giants offense this year. Even though he's playing a Jets defense, I think he still gets enough catches out of the backfield, enough rushes, and he does pretty decent on the ground. So I like those two right as it stands right now over Cook and Akers. Now, if it were against Gibbs and Hall, it'd be a lot closer. I'd probably still go with John's running backs, but it wouldn't be as like right now it's a heavy favorite for John at running back, but it would be a lot closer if Carrie played, in my opinion. Again, she can do whatever she wants, but in my opinion, if she had Breece and Jahmyr Gibbs instead, it'd be a lot closer. Um, Wide receiver, I'm also going to go with John slightly, just as it is right now. I like St. Brown against the Raiders. I like that. I don't like Marquise Brown against the Ravens. Um, Marquise Brown, even though he's been playing consistently, he was playing consistently up until last week. He struggled a lot against the Seahawks and the Ravens. Um, it is his former team, so maybe he might want to come out and show them, what they're missing. But Cooper Kupp's gonna have a bounce back game. I really think that. Jalen Waddle, he'll be fine. I feel like this is one where John could probably go with Jordan Addison, maybe, just because Addison's playing Packers defense that's really like the secondary has not looked good at all. They're down Jair Alexander, they're down Eric Stokes, they're down Darnell Savage. They don't have anyone in their secondary that's really good. So I expect Jordan Addison to kind of do have much better game than Jalen Waddle. Um, and plus Waddle struggled against Patriots the first go around, so I think it's possible that, it's very run heavy for the Dolphins, and when they do throw it, they're going to go with Tyree because he's the man. Um, yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. Um, but yeah, I like St. Brown for carry. Marquise Brown, I don't know. It's very iffy. It's up in the air. I'm going to go with the more of the sure things in Cooper right now. At tight end, I'd carry slightly just because we don't know anything about Michael Mayer. He hasn't really done much this season. Hunter Henry, even though he's been struggling lately and he is dealing a little bit with an injury right now, he should be good to go. He had his best performance in week 2 against Miami. So maybe that's a bright spot that they can exploit there and he can finally get back to what he was to start the season. At flex, I'm also oh yeah, flex. I'm gonna go with Carey as well. DJ Moore, he struggled a little bit last week, but the Chargers have the worst secondary in all of football. They have the 32nd ranked pass defense, so I think that bodes well for DJ Moore. And Tyson Bagent didn't even look that bad at quarterback last week. And I know he was playing the Raiders, but he's also playing a weak passing defense this week in the Chargers. So I think DJ Moore will actually have a pretty good week. Jonathan Taylor, he might. Saints have a pretty decent run defense now. They struggled last week against Jacksonville. Jonathan Taylor, it's hard to predict what you're going to get with him. So I think he'll do fine, but I like DJ Moore's matchup just a little bit more. Defensively, this one's going to John. Chiefs defense that they just own the Broncos. Like the Broncos seem to can't seem to do anything against Kansas City. Whereas if and Carey's playing the Patriots defense as of now, don't like that. Miami's offense is just too good to trust for a defense. And they didn't do well against Miami in week 2, and that Miami's run game just was too dominant for them. So I'm not sure how that's, especially when they're on the road in Miami. I don't like that either. So Carey may pick up a different defense. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, with all that being said, I think John takes the win here. Some things of note to the things of interest. Maybe Kirk Cousins over Trevor Lawrence. Kirk Cousins has a better matchup this week. Green Bay's defense is very poor. I wouldn't say very poor, but they're injured, I should say, is a better way to say it. So I think Kirk Cousins will exploit that and he'll have a really good game against the Packers. For John, I actually think it's shocking to see Bijan Robinson on his bench. And it's a weird way because it's like, oh, is he punishing Bijan for only getting the point 0.3 points? I mean, I actually think that's the smart decision because the Titans, if there's anything good about the Titans, it's their run defense. They've been able to stop the run. Um, so yeah, and plus he was dealing with an illness last week. Who knows how long that's going to continue? But I actually think that's smart. Like I like Barkley, Kamara, and Taylor all over Bijan this week. So I think that's a good decision for John to sit Bijan Robinson. Um, and then yeah, like I said, Addison. Like probably if I were John, I would be starting Addison over Waddle, but that's just me. Um, Addison's got the much better matchup and more injury-prone defense right now. So yeah. And then finally going on to the last matchup of the week, we have Ben, 5-2, first place in the East, going up against Garrett, fourth in the West. Now, at first glance, it's just like, okay, well, this is probably going to be Ben's win. I'm going to say not so fast. And this might come as a shocker. It probably is coming as a shocker. And here's why. So, at quarterback, right? Garrett's got Jared Goff. Ben's got Jordan Love. Jordan Love, I know I'm being a pessimistic Packers fan. Jordan Love has just not looked good the last 3 weeks of the season. He has ever since that comeback against the Saints, he just has not been playing well. And Minnesota was able to hold San Francisco's off. And now I know San Francisco didn't have Deebo Samuel, but still, they still had McCaffrey, they still had Ayuk, they still had Kittle. They did really well against San Francisco last week, and they did even better against Chicago on the road, so they seem to be doing pretty well in those road division games so far. I can't trust Jordan Love at all at quarterback, and Justin Fields is still hurt, so Ben can't play him. So I think the quarterback position right now, Jared Goff, he had a tough week last week against Baltimore, but they're going to be at home on prime time Monday night against the Raiders, who are a very piss poor defense. They just made Tyson Bagent look great. So I think Jared Goff's going to go off on Monday night against the Raiders, and he'll definitely be a much better play than Jordan Love. Now running back, yes, Ben will definitely have the better running back group. He already has the best running back tandem of anyone in our league. You would have these two. The only better combo would be like McCaffrey and Mostert, or McCaffrey and a healthy Achane over McCaffrey and Etienne. McCaffrey and Etienne, I think Ben just hit the jackpot at running back. So yeah, take Ben's running backs over Jones and Pierce any day. This is where it starts to really get dicey for me. So AJ Brown's great, no denying that, and I think he'll have another good game, another 20 plus game against Washington. Calvin Ridley has been very inconsistent. He's been struggling a lot lately. He hasn't scored a touchdown in I think 3 weeks. And now that could change against the Steelers secondary, who's kind of poor, but he hasn't been trustworthy. And Trevor Lawrence still kind of dealing with that injury. They've been running the ball a lot more than they have throwing it. And when they are throwing it, they've got Christian Kirk, who's been playing a lot more. He's been playing way more consistently than Calvin Ridley has. So I kind of trust Kirk more than I trust Calvin Ridley at this point. Garrett's got DK Metcalf coming off of injury against the Browns secondary. Now he'll probably be going up against, I forgot the guy's name. I'm not going to go into it right now because that would just take forever. But going up against Browns defense, who's been playing pretty well, but I think he's that solid guy that Geno Smith was missing last week to really like get a lot of those red zone touchdowns that they were missing on. So I think he'll help them bounce back this week against Cleveland. Mike Evans, he's been great. Even though the Bucs offense in totality has been struggling, the Bills secondary has been injured and they've been all over the place. So that's like the one part of the Bills defense I really don't like is their secondary right now. And I think Mike Evans has a pretty decent game. So I think there's a good chance. I think AJ Brown is the best of the four. There's no denying that. But I like this combo of Metcalf and Evans. It's like very razor thin more than Brown and Ridley, only because Ridley has been very inconsistent. He hasn't shown anything in the last couple of weeks, and Evans has been consistent. He's been good. Metcalf coming off of injury, I think he will help them a lot. So I'm going to give Garrett just like the ever so slightest edge at receiver. Very, very slight. Only because AJ Brown is just that good. And then moving to tight end, I'm giving Garrett the edge at tight end as well. And Njoku's hurt. I don't know how effective he'll be against Seattle. Seattle's been one of the best defenses in terms of defending the tight end this year. And yeah, George Kittle's been playing pretty well lately. Has a much better matchup against Cincinnati too. So yeah, give me George Kittle all day over Njoku. At flex, I am going to go with Ben as it's set up right now. Jacoby Myers it seems like he's the number one receiver in Vegas and not Devontae Adams. It really does feel like that. I mean, he's got some sort of special connection with all three of their quarterbacks, Garoppolo, Hoyer, O'Connell. It doesn't matter. Jacoby Myers is the guy for the Raiders. He's the only guy who's been super productive all season. And yes, the Raiders offense in total is not good, and the Lions have a tough defense. It's the best option I think right now Ben has at flex. So, and plus Cortland Sutton's going up against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to dominate the Broncos, and I don't like either of the Broncos receivers, whether he plays Sutton or Judy. I don't like either of them. So I'm going to go with Myers. Defense, giving this one to Garrett. Falcons defense has been playing pretty well. They played well last week against Tampa Bay on the road. They're on the road in Tennessee, going up against a very young and not unsuccessful quarterback so far, Malik Willis. They're gonna stack the box and try to contain Derrick Henry as much as possible. And then their Falcons have been pretty good against the run. They haven't I think it's like I saw something they averaged less than 100 yards uh, for rushing yards against them. So they're going to do the best they can to contain Derrick Henry and force Malik Willis to beat them. And if they do that, if they are able to stop the run game in Tennessee, then I actually like the Falcons defense here. Packers defense, yeah, they're injured. They're inconsistent. They're going up against the Minnesota team coming off an amazing win against the 49ers, and they're hot too. Minnesota's won 2 in a row. Packers have lost 3 in a row. Yeah, I just think I don't like this for the Packers at all. If I were Ben, I'd pick up a different defense. So I'm gonna give Garrett the edge at that defense. So with that all being said, and it's weird because right now it looks like with the projections that Ben would have an easy win over Garrett. I'm actually gonna pick Garrett. Why not? It does like this is for fun, but like I low key think Garrett might have a chance. Like I think has a real chance to upset Ben, and it's shocking, yeah. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Paul, what the hell are you thinking? Like Ben's been one of the better teams. I get it, right? And obviously, you know, if Brown goes off for like 45 points, then it doesn't matter what Calvin Ridley does or what Njoku does or anything like that. But I think Ben's quarterback, Calvin Ridley, his second receiver, Njoku, and his defense are going to let him down. I think everyone else will be fine, like even great. Like McCaffrey and ETN will both have good games. Um, but man, I feel like Goff's going to go off. Metcalf and Evans combined, I think will be better than Brown and Ridley combined. Kittle, I like him more. And yeah, and I didn't even go over like the options, right? So for Garrett, I think what he should be doing instead of playing Cortland Sutton at flex, I think he should go Dallas Goedert at flex. Washington's been very bad against tight ends, and he's already got Kittle playing, who's a great play. Don't play Cortland Sutton, in my opinion. Don't play Cortland Sutton against Kansas City. Kansas City shuts down Denver. Put in Dallas Goedert at flex. You'll have 2 real good tight ends, one at tight end and one at flex. I think that will really help Garrett's chances at winning, especially if he plays him. Um, and obviously don't start if Rashawn Johnson is out, don't start him, but he's not listed in the starting lineup. So he's got Jones and Pearson. Jones might have a decent game, but you just never know with him right now with him how he's dealing with that injury. Dameon Pierce coming off a bye should be pretty good against Carolina's run defense. So that will help as well. And for Ben, one other option I had for Ben was maybe Cole Kmet over David Njoku. Now I know Cole Kmet gave you 0 points last week. The Chargers' pass defense is horrible, so I would think maybe obviously that helps him a little bit more than Njoku going up against Seattle, who's been very good against tight ends this season. So I think Cole Kmet's just a little safer play in my opinion. And then maybe Chris Godwin, if he plays, I know he's questionable tonight against Buffalo. Maybe Chris Godwin over Calvin Ridley, maybe, but hey, that's up to you. So yeah, ending it with a bang, ending it with a shocker. I'm picking Garrett to upset Ben here. So how about that? Yep, there we go. Thank you guys for watching. That was the week 8 predictions. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Looking forward to this weekend of football and seeing how everyone does. It's just all these matchups, right? We got battle of last place in me and Carol. We got 2 spouse battles in Nelson Joan who are trying to battle for solid playoff positioning, and Carrie and John who are trying to battle to stay alive in the hunt. And then you got Tom and Adrian who are battling for top spot in the league. You got 5-2 versus 6-1, trying to battle powerhouses right now. And then you've ended off with what should be an easy win for Ben, but I would not be shocked at all if Garrett pulls off the upset, and I think he will. Now, those are the predictions. Thank you guys for watching so much. Paul Jensen signing off for the DFFFP. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.